Hey guys, here we go into the second part of my film study for Jeff Horn versus Terence Crawford. Coming up this weekend, very interesting fight. And I don't want to give away too much. I still want to do the Terence Crawford film study and talk about it on Julius Ndango. But there are a few things that I want to talk about that I talked a little bit about in the film yesterday, but I didn't extrapolate on as much as I would like. We're going to be talking about his offense, his defense, and um, and some other of the factors that are going to play a huge part in the fight. And I talked a little bit about controlling the space between him and his opponent and how active of a guard he has, and how even though he was on the front foot in the whole Pacquiao fight, Pacquiao's offense was mitigated by around 28% because of the head movement, because of the angles, because of the feinting from Jeff Horn. Manny Pacquiao had a hard time getting into the fight and finding those perfect opportunities to land punches. Um, and because of that, that's probably the reason why he fell behind on the cards. Um, Even though, most people thought Pacquiao won, he obviously did the most damage, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about a few other things, though. But the first thing we're going to talk about is I wanted to talk and extrapolate on the trap-based offense that he had. Pattern and trap-based offense. So we're going to watch the first 30 seconds. I'm going to talk to you guys through it. So right here, he shoots that feinting shot, right? And Gary slips to the inside, right? And Jeff Horn pays attention. He knows. Then he goes to feinting. He's got his really active guard, right? And if you notice and you watch this fight, Gary doesn't really fight in the first round very much. He's very linear. He's controlled very well by Jeff Horn. And again, right here, when Jeff shoots the jab, he slips to the inside, right? So what does Jeff Horn do? He feints him right here with the jab, and then walks him into that right hand right there. And now this is trap-based and pattern-based offense. And I think it's one of the most basic levels, right? So he set a trap for Gary, right? And the fact that it only took him 15 seconds to start setting traps for him, phenomenal. Beautiful boxing. But it's very similar to when Mayweather would shoot his jab, and he's got a fast jab, you never know. And fast jab to the body, fast jab to the head, and all of a sudden you go to start catching the jab, you remove your block for the hook, right? And now he's feinting the jab and coming in with the left hook instead and, dropping you like he did to 111 Marquez after he got off of his retirement. Canelo does a very similar thing, and it's a trap-based offense, right? And this kind of offense, because you're not really setting it up, you're hoping that your opponent reacts the same way that he reacted previously, which is smart. You want to be looking for those kind of traps to set. You really only have so many opportunities to capitalize on them before your opponent figures out that trap and stops making the same mistake. And it's a little different than probing, which is very high-level trap setting, because, I don't want to say this like the wrong way, right? But it's not dependent on how do you say it? It's kind of live action trap setting, right? So when you feint him, so Jeff Horn set that right hand up right here, right? He set that right hand up here by picking up on the fact that Gary Corcoran was moving his head, right? And then when he got to this situation here, or right here, he was able to walk him into this right hand. Now, the difference between real, probing and real high-level offense is that the first time that your opponent makes that mistake is when you're going to catch them and make them pay for it. So you'll be sitting in front of them, right? And instead of hard feinting and getting out of position, right? And then remembering for the next time, right? You'll feint them, you'll probe them, right? And then as soon as they slip that way, boom, you catch them with the shot, right? Or you feint them this way, you get them to bring their hands up, right? And then as soon as they do that, right? Boom, right hand to the body, right? Or boom, touch them upstairs a little bit, get them to slip to the outside, bam, left hook to the body. But you're making them pay for the mistakes the first time that they make them, and you want to be paying attention to those kinds of traps and those kind of opportunities during the course of your feinting and your probing. And it's it's a more risky style because you're not in and out, right? Jeff Horn spends a lot of time out of range of his opponent, and that's the reason why he uses this style of offense. It's very common in the amateurs, right, to to not be close to your opponent, because that's when they can punch you, right? And speed and athleticism, and when you're just learning boxing, it's just kind of two people smashing their skills together. And the amateurs sometimes, early in the amateurs, it's very difficult to have really high level fights. Um, but and that's the reason why he stays so far away from his opponents, and that's why his offense is like this. It's a great offense for this, but it's like, I don't want to say an amateur style, because Jeff Horn's a good fighter. I don't want to take that away from him. Like, I definitely don't think he's not a good fighter. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and kind of move on. And at 230, right here, Jeff Horn uses that same style offense against his opponent, right? Feinting him with the lead hand, and then Gary Corcoran just takes a step back and puts his high guard up. This is the exact same trap that he set a second ago, just 20 seconds ago, and it landed a clean right hand. But now all of a sudden, Gary has made an adjustment. He understands, and Jeff was not able to capitalize any more on that trap than he was on than landing that one punch. And that's one of the reasons why trap-based offense, you really got to make your opponents pay for it. Another fighter that has a very similar type of offense is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman has I'm not sure. I haven't done a lot of film on him. I'm waiting for him to fight, Spence or Sean Porter again, which I would love to see, or fight Brook. That would be great. Man, I would love to see him fight Brook. But Brook's, obviously Brook's moving up, so I don't want to see him fight Danny Garcia again. But there are some great examples in there with Danny Garcia where Keith Thurman would flash that lead hand, that hook, right? He would go, and that was just to get Danny Garcia out of position, to get Danny Garcia to slip this way or slip or roll, right? And he would do that as he closes the distance, right? Take that step, right? Come into range, and then he would throw his right hand to the body or throw his right hand over the top. And actually, we're going to see some of that offense, that same exact offense from Jeff Horn in this fight, and we're going to see how his opponent reacts to it. It's probably not the greatest demonstration of how to take advantage of it, because Gary Corcoran's, he doesn't do the greatest job of taking it away. But in the fight with Danny Garcia, you can clearly see Danny Garcia, after about the third or the fourth round, just go, okay, he's not even trying to land that left hand, I'll just wait. And then you see that left hand sail by him like this, and he's just like this, and then you see Keith Thurman open up with that trap-based offense after Danny Garcia has made an adjustment, and just start winging the left hook to land at Keith Thurman. He just completely stops respecting that feint or that probe, because it's dependent on your previous exchanges. You're only using information from your previous exchange to set up your next punch. And in that instance, your opponent has the opportunity to make an adjustment, just like we see Gary Corcoran doing right here. Now, this is going to come back, so we're going to come back and talk about this later, right? But this is the way that Jeff Horn is looking to set up his offense, is with this this style. And another thing I want to point out is, see how he takes a small step when he does, right? So he flashes the lead hand, takes a step forward, and then Gary Corcoran moves away. So now the next thing we want to look at is, we're going to be looking at how he controls his opponent when he misses his shots. Now this is very important. This is very important, you guys. And the reason that this is important is because Jeff Horn has been fighting big guys his whole career. Now, I don't know who's been throwing this kid to the wolves or what they expected out of him, but let's take a look at his box rec. Let's see. So yeah, his box rec right here. So Victor, I'm not going to say that guy's name, Victor something, was 5'11", right? This is a welterweight, right? 5'11". This guy's huge. He had like so many fights. So I think he fought him. I think he fought Horn when Horn had 8 fights. 5'11" and a half. Ahmed, Musasi or Musai. I don't know how to say that guy's name. Man, you guys are gonna kill me in the comments for that. I didn't even read this guy's name, man. Come on. Randall Bailey, right? He fought Randall Bailey when he had like 12 fights or something. This guy is like one of the most feared punchers in the welterweight division. But also look at his height, 5'9". He's a big welterweight. He knocked out Mike Jones. That guy was a huge prospect. Rico Mueller, 5'9". Ali Funeka, 6'1". This guy beat one of my favorite fighters, Joan Guzman. Man, did I love watching that guy fight. That guy was just all kinds of special nuts, man. I loved watching that guy fight. And then Gary Corcoran, 5'9". But if you look in this video while we're watching it, there's no way this guy's only 5'9". Jeff Horn's 5'9", and this guy towers over him. You know, and now a lot of people think that Jeff Horn is like a dirty fighter, right? But look at the size of the people that he's been fighting his whole career. These guys are giants, and they're way more experienced than he is. And the idea that he's a dirty fighter, in my opinion, because of that, is just a little flawed. And I think that it's because of the fact that he's fought such huge fighters, and that's why he was able to win against Pacquiao, is the experience that he had against huge fighters. Now, what I want to show here is, so again, Jeff Horn was starting to not be able to use that pattern-based offense against Gary Corcoran. It stopped being as effective, where he would feint and then just throw a random punch, right? And hope that it would land based on his previous knowledge. So here he shoots a right hand. He tries a different style of offense, and unfortunately for Jeff Horn, he still steps forward, right, and telegraphs the shot. But what he does do is he controls his opponent, right? Boom. Controls him with his forearm, pushes off, and then throws that left hook, right? Now, this is going to be really important, you guys. This is going to be really important when he fights Terence Crawford, because of the way that you want to fight someone who steps in. You want to counterpunch them. You want to time them on the way in, and this is exactly how Crawford beat Julius Ndongo. And we'll get much more into that when we watch that film study and we break it down. But it's really important, the fact that Jeff Horn finds a way to be predictable, use defensive responsibility as he slips to the outside, control his opponent, and then push off and set up offense on the way out, right? This is going to be a huge thing for him. And the reason this is going to be a big deal, because, and again, look at how much bigger that guy is than Jeff Horn. Like, he's so much freaking taller. He's like slouching. Look how he's freaking massive. I mean, Jeff Horn's wide. You know, he's pretty wide, but I think Crawford's only 5'8", you guys, and he's coming up from like 135, right? And he's not a big guy. You know, I don't know how he's going to look at welterweight. I don't know, but he's not a big guy. And the fact that Jeff Horn uses these kinds of techniques, and we're going to see another one here, right? He shoots that jab, and because it's telegraphed, right, he steps with it. Gary's able to get away from it, but look at what he does. He controls his head and pulls him and drags him down to the ground. Now, this is really interesting because this is very, very, very important, because Jeff Horn is going to be so much bigger than Crawford. Even if Crawford is winning, in the skills department, I pick Crawford to have, you know, Crawford is a better fighter in southpaw and orthodox than Jeff Horn is in his normal stance. He's just a better fighter. He has better skills. He understands combat better, how to set his punches up. He's uses feints and probes much better. He uses control a little bit better, defensive control a little bit better than Jeff Horn. He's not as like physically dominant, right? His offense is better, and he also has an active guard. You know, I don't think his guard is as active as Jeff Horn's is, right? Especially when he's going to be fighting Jeff Horn. I'm not sure if Crawford is even going to use his active guard, because he wants to draw Jeff Horn in. Very likely he wants to draw him in like he did against Julius Ndongo, so he can get Julius Ndongo to commit to that very flawed stepping, flashing the lead hand offense and counter him, because he knows where the punches are coming and going. Now, the next one that I wanted to talk about is down here. Is here. Boom. Again, controlling his opponent, right? He shoots that right hand, his opponent gets under it, and he controls him with this forearm and stops him from eating any counters. Now, at this point in the fight, Gary Corcoran is looking to set up offense. He is looking to take steps back and land punches. But Jeff Horn is controlling him, not in every engagement, but in enough of them to mitigate Gary's offense so that he can't really score. And if he's able to do this to Crawford, Crawford is going to have a much harder time setting up his counters than we think, because Julius Ndongo did not have any of those skills. Zero. None, right? He was a very basic fighter. He was very good at what he did, but he was a very basic fighter. And it would have really helped him to get a different coach, get some training from someone who was not in, you know, just a different coach, a different look, you know, different someone with a different mind, you know, because you can only go so far with so much information. And Julius Ndongo did a really good job of doing what he did, and getting where he was, but he needed to up his game, you know. And if he could have learned some of those techniques, maybe he would have had a little more success against the tiny Crawford. Probably not, but maybe, nah. But anyway, the next thing we're going to look at is the stepping with the offense. And I just wanted to talk about this. I know I've talked about it a lot already, but as you can see, Jeff Horn steps with his offense all the time. Stepping with his jab makes him really easy to time. Not only time, right, but counter him even more effectively because he steps with them. And the fact that he uses a pattern-based offense and he's easy to time gives his opponents twice as many opportunities to counter him or to pick up on counter timings as they normally would have. As you can see right here, stepping with the jab, and in the next scene right here, he steps again, flashing the lead hand, but he still has to step inside and then throws that right hand to the body. Fine offense right there, right? As long as he knows that he's going to get his opponent into the high guard, which he does at this point, but he still has to step with the shot, right? And that's going to give away his timing. And that's exactly what Crawford was catching Ndongo with, was that lead hand would come out and just boom, boom, body shots, boom, boom, and just wreck him like that. Now again, right here, very similar. Look at how Jeff Horn takes a step with the lead hand, and that shot's not really supposed to land. It doesn't matter. It's just to get his opponent to occupy his guard, get him to think, oh, what's happening? Oh, I'm scared. Body shot, right? But again, Jeff Horn has to step with that shot in order to land it, and that's going to be a very, very difficult prospect against a fighter as talented as Crawford. And Crawford is so good, you know. Now, we will talk about what Crawford can do to take those tools away and take the feinting away, and in case Jeff Horn is using the control, right, the jab, sweep the head, right, and push him down, or the right hand, body up, forearm, and shove him off and keep him off balance. There are ways that he's going to be able to mitigate that as well, and we'll talk about that when we talk about his videos in particular. We might have to look at a separate fight than the Julius Ndongo fight, because in the Ndongo fight, he fights a very, very, very linear fight, and he doesn't even he doesn't even use any skills in that fight. He just uses timing. That's it. And he just smashes Ndongo off of timing. But anyway, Gary Corcoran starts to figure him out about right here. Now here, right, he uses that right hand, and what was he doing before? Boom, he would cover him up, right, and then control him with the forearm, right? But what does Gary Corcoran do now? Instead of ducking or slipping the shot, he takes a step back and throws a right hand, right? Starting to figure him out, starting to take steps back. And this is also something that Terence Crawford does really well, and he did it against Ndongo as well. But he starts figuring him out, and this helps to mitigate Jeff Horn's offense. That's why when you watch the second round is much more gritty, many more punches from Gary Corcoran, and he has much more success. He doesn't win the round by any means, right? But he has much more success. Now we're going to go ahead and get into the second round and show a few more examples of that. Again, Jeff Horn feinting, right? Using his lead hand, taking a step, and giving up the fact that he's going to punch at Gary Corcoran, right? And what does Gary do? Nope. Starts taking that offense away from him, right? And by countering him and trying to counter over the top, Jeff Horn now has to think, oh, what do I do now? Now that he's countering my lead hand to get him out of position, what do I do, right? And he starts taking away Jeff's offense because it's not dynamic, because it's all pattern based, and it's all based off of information that he's gathered previously, right? It's not dynamic in respect to how his opponent is going to react to it in the moment. It's all how he reacted to it last time with the expectation that it'll be the same. But again, Jeff Horn has already used that trick. So now he has to figure something else out. Again, Jeff Horn flashing the lead hand. And what does Gary do? He says, hey, stop that. And he shoots a jab, right? Now, we're going to watch the rest of this little part right here where he shoots the right hand and then he lands his own right hand or his own jab, but boom, and then he eats that right hand from Jeff Horn anyway. So even though Gary is finally finding ways to take away that offense from Jeff, right? Stop him from setting up those easy shots, right? And he's able to break his rhythm and get him back. Jeff Horn is still a good fighter. He's still able to move back and change angles and land some shots, even though this one probably should have been a little telegraph for him because you can see him set it up, right? You can see him set down before he throws it, but he can still move back, take angles, move off the line, and meet Gary and win the exchange in an exchange that all of the proprietary knowledge that of the boxing engagement right there belonged to Gary. Gary had all of the advantages because he knew what Jeff was going to do, and Jeff still came out ahead. Now that's very important. I'll tell about it in a second. I'll talk about that in a second, but we're going to look at some other stuff real quick. So right here, boom. Again, making adjustments, right? So instead of taking a step back, right, like we saw him before, which didn't yield any results for Gary, Gary grabs him and he holds him and he says, hey man, this is the only way I can control you and I can stop you from moving off the line. I can stop you from controlling me with your forearm and pushing off, right? He holds him, right? They move off the angle and then he lands a little left hook. It's kind of a slapping touch, just a touch, right? But he's taking away all of Jeff Horn's like free or easy offense, right? The lead right hand, and now Jeff Horn isn't even able to use that lead right hand to create space and stop Gary from pressuring him because let's face it, once your opponent knows how to get away from that shot, all you're doing when you throw it is creating space. So if your opponent gets you on the ropes, you set down, you telegraph your right hand, he goes, right hand, and then he puts his hands up or he slips, and then you control him and move off the line. And now you're in a different part of the ring, and you're not in as much danger as you were against the ropes, right? But Gary Corcoran's saying, hey, I can make an adjustment to this. I can do something, and kind of winds up landing like a little slapping shot. Not a big deal, right? But the fact that he can make these adjustments against Jeff Horn is a big deal because Crawford is going to be able to make so many better adjustments. Now, what else was I going to say? Oh, I was going to talk about something else. Man, I'm even doing a video where I get to talk all the shit that I want, and the video gets to be long as I want, and I'm already out of things to talk about. I don't remember what I was going to say. I forgot what it was going to be. Oh, man. Let's see. Yeah, the only thing is, now, the advantages that I think that Jeff Horn has, I don't think he's a dirty fighter, right? I know he's fought some big guys, right? And he's strong. But the fact that he's a strong fighter is indicative of the fact that he's fought so many much bigger guys than him. 5'11", 6'1", a bunch of guys that are 5'11", 5'10 and a half or whatever. And I didn't even look at all of them. I just clicked on a bunch of them. Some of those guys that are big, they didn't even have their height in there. But that's going to be a huge advantage for Jeff Horn. And we've already seen what he did to Manny Pacquiao with it. And Manny Pacquiao is a way better fighter than Gary Corcoran, right? And he was able to do that and bully him because Manny Pacquiao he's not a very big guy. And how much bigger do you think Crawford is going to be than Manny Pacquiao was? Is he going to be that much bigger? Like weight-wise, height-wise? It's 2 inches, right? Manny Pacquiao's 5'6", and Crawford's 5'8". So, I don't know. I think that Jeff Horn, and I'll do a video on this as well, like when I do my final prediction video. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at Bud Crawford's videos, and we're going to be talking about his style of offense, his style of defense. We might have to do a different fight aside from the Julius Ndongo one, to talk about those ideas because he fights a very, very, very linear fight in that fight, which is brilliant for his career. The fact that he didn't have to continue showing off his skills and give people more stuff to film study, because they're going to want to look at his most recent performance to figure out who he is and how to film study him and all that garbage. And he just hides all his skills in that fight. Like if that was the first fight I ever watched of Terence Crawford, I'd be like, man, this guy sucks. He sucks. I know he knocked him out in the third round, but that's because Julius Ndongo sucks, you know. He doesn't suck, you know, but Julius Ndongo was like your average like C-level fighter for my very, very difficult, tough grading scale. He's a C-level fighter. He would kick my ass. I know, you guys. I'm just kidding. I fucked that fool up. Nah, I'm just kidding. I am just kidding. I don't want to fight Julius Ndongo. I'm just kidding, bro. Just kidding. But um, but he didn't have to show any skills. So maybe I'll do some film study. I'll redo some film study on how he fought Diaz. I can't remember that guy's first name, but who's a really good fighter. He's a little awkward. His technique isn't the best. Like he almost doesn't pass the eye test, and that's the only thing that's really wrong with that guy. But Diaz is a good fighter, and Crawford freaking schooled him. Just easy peasy schooled him, and beat the crap out of him, and made it look easy. So I might do some film study on that. Uh, I think I'll do some day 2 film study. Like this one, I'll do breakdown of specific clips of the fight and talk about it. But in the first one, I want to just break down the first. Maybe I'll break down the second and the third round of Crawford's fight with Julius Ndongo. Well, look at the times. Maybe I'll just do all 3. I think I posted a video like that a few months ago, and Top Rank was like, "Oh hell nah," and they come and fuck me up on those copyright bullshits. But I don't have any strikes right now, so I don't give a, you know what I'm saying.